Brothers and sisters, inshallah, I'll be looking at an ayah from the 25th juz of the Quran, and it is from Surah Ad-Dukhan, and it is the third ayah of Surah Ad-Dukhan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ مُبَارَكَةٍ إِنَّا كُنَّا مُنذِرِينَ.
Indeed, we have sent it down on a blessed night. We were to warn. So in this particular ayah, I figured it would befit us to be covering this ayah, because indeed this ayah is talking about Laylatul Qadr, and we are in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, so it only makes sense that this ayah from Surah Ad-Dukhan, that we would take a look at it. But in fact, I'm not even going to look at the entire ayah. I just wanted to look at one word in this ayah, and just to show you the grandeur of just every single word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. So you'll notice in this particular ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah. This word mubarakah, it is the English translation said blessed night. But this particular word mubarakah comes from the triliteral root ba, ra, and kaf. Now what does this word mean? Well, it means basically two things. It means an increase of something, and it also has the connotation of longevity, something that lasts a long time. Now, an animal that sits on its stomach is known as buruk, okay, coming from the same triliteral root. And so if you think about a camel, that when it's sitting down, it is literally on its belly or on its stomach. So what does the linguistic term, what does the meaning of the word have to do with this camel sitting on its belly? Well, the thing is, camels are very stubborn animals. And so if you try to move them, they're going to be sitting there for a very long time. And so that concept of barakah, where it's not only about increase, but also longevity, is found in the concept of the camel not moving and just being stubborn and just sitting there for just a long period of time. Similarly, a body of water that is still, that doesn't have motion, it's just there and there for a long time, that's been sitting there for a long time, is called bikra. So what we find is that the concept of barakah, as you know, we don't want to limit it to our understanding of the English word blessings, includes an increase of something, right? So you could have $1 and it can buy you a certain number of items, but when you have barakah in that dollar, it can buy you even more items. That's the general idea. The dollar is blessed in a sense. But barakah itself, the term as it's used specifically in this context for Laylatul Qadr, is that there's also longevity. And this is almost like a paradigm shift for the person that truly understands barakah, right? It's like when we talk about barakah in terms of permanence, in terms of that which which remains. Like, I'll give you an example, and this example comes from Aisha radiallahu anha, and she mentions that there was a sheep that they had in their house that they would give away, they slaughtered it and gave away for sadaqah. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes and asks Aisha radiallahu anha, he says, ma baqiya minha, what remains of it, what remains of the sheep that was slaughtered? So Aisha says, ma baqiya minha, there's nothing that remains of it except the shoulder, right? And as we know, the Prophet ﷺ, that was his favorite part to eat of the animal. But here's the point, here's the paradigm shift. The Prophet ﷺ then says, and it's as if he's correcting Aisha radiallahu anha, he says, no, rather what remains is everything we've given away in sadaqah. And the only thing that doesn't remain, well, it's the shoulder, in fact, which could be exhausted. And this is like a paradigm shift. Why? Because sadaqah that you give for the sake of Allah, that has permanence. And what you eat, like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِ, let the human being look at its food. And Imam al-Qurtubi mentions that, I believe it is in an athar, where he says that yes, indeed, man, let him look at his food. He salts it, he seasons it, he spends time on it, he cooks it. Let him look at where it ends up. right? Where does food end up? But yet, where does sadaqah, when you give sadaqah for the sake of Allah, it has a permanence, right? So the concept of permanence is very profound. In fact, even when we look at Laylatul Qadr, this night that is mubarakah, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that is full of blessings, what is the dua that you make on this night, right? You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked by Aisha again, right? We know that if we find Laylatul Qadr in these last 10 nights, what should we say? What is the dua that we make, right? What do we say? The Prophet ﷺ responded, as I'm sure you've heard this dua many, many times, right? That you say if on this night of Qadr, on this blessed night, Allahumma innaka afuwwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Oh Allah, indeed you are al-afu, and you love this concept of afu, whatever this may be, of afwa. So have afwa, do afwa for me, right? Now I'm not translating it on purpose. Why? Because when you think about the concept of a sin, when you look at a sin, when you say, okay, to a person, okay, I forgave you. Now you may have forgiven that person, but you may not forget the injustice they committed to you. So you've forgiven them. But that's not what afwa is. Afwa is to efface a sin. In other words, make it seem as if it's permanently, again, the concept of permanence, permanently, it's gone, right? So forgiving someone is like covering up their sin, all right? Like they would be covered, you know, but afwa, right? The concept of afwa is to eradicate it. So it's permanently gone, as if it never happened. Again, permanence. So Allah, what this dua is saying is that it's not just, oh Allah, forgive me. It's saying, oh Allah, eradicate my sin, that it never happened. And again, it goes back to the concept of permanence. So my dear brothers and sisters, in this blessed night, it is a night that is full of barakah, both from an increase and from permanence. Why? Because the deeds you do on this night, there's an increase because, as we know, khayrun min alfi shahr. They are better than 1,000 months. Every dollar that you give for the sake of Allah, you're rewarded as if you had, doing it for 1,000 months or giving for 1,000 times over or more, actually, in fact, right? Every salah, every dhikr that you do, every mentioning of Allah that you do, there's barakah in the sense of increase. But all of those things are also permanent. Why? Because you have sent them to the one who is everlasting, to the one is ever living, and to the one who is al-afu, the one who takes your sins and makes them temporary. So this is the night of barakah from the perspective of the increase in everything, but the permanence of the good that you do for the one that you are doing it for. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of you your a'mal, your sadaqat, your qiyam, your siyam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to meet Laylatul Qadr, this night of blessing, and may He accept from us all of our deeds. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.